can't talk, got a beat in my headphones. Welcome back to the webcast, All Sports One Web. It is Friday, so that means college football, and what a weekend we had last weekend. Doug is back with me once again. Welcome back to the college football scene, Doug. What a weekend we had, but I have to start in other sports news because it broke this morning that Christian McCaffrey has been traded to the 49ers, a team on Tuesday when we do our NFL picks on Tuesday, 7 p.m. here on the webcast. And Doug was asking for Christian McCaffrey to get traded to the 49ers. So, Doug, I have to start with you. What are your thoughts on, first, Christian McCaffrey for his career, the Carolina Panthers, and what that means for them going forward? And then how do the 49ers fit in your top rankings playoff picture currently?
Well, I think it's a great move for Christian McCaffrey. I think it'll be the resurgence of his career he needed. You know, he's finally going to be on a team that can win some games. For the Carolina Panthers, they are in full-out rebuild mode, which they needed to be. I believe they got like 6 picks for him or something. I don't remember exactly, but they got quite a bit for this next season, and then 1 or 2 for the following, and that's huge. I mean, no first rounders, but a couple second rounders, you know, a couple fifth rounders, you know, stuff like that. So that's huge. For the 49ers, I've always thought they were close and they're right there. If they can get, you know, a lot of their injuries sorted out, I think they're a contender. They're definitely tops in the NFC. We have Minnesota and the 49ers, really, in my opinion. I don't see the Packers doing anything. I don't really see anybody doing anything to them. I mean, you have the Giants. You have the Eagles. I forgot about the Eagles. So you have the Eagles, and I don't think the Cowboys are going to keep it up. I don't think the Giants are going to keep it up. I think the 49ers, the Eagles, and the Vikings all have it, are really it. I don't think the Buccaneers are it this season. They just don't look like they did last year.
Yeah, I mean, I put them right there, if not at the top, right at the top. We look at the last couple of years and the teams that went on to win the Super Bowl. They all made a very nice addition right before the deadline. OBJ for the Rams last year, for example, was a key piece to get that offense really solidified and take them throughout the playoffs. The 49ers, I mean, you talk about Minnesota, the Rams, even for the division. And that's, I mean, Philadelphia, of course, is there, but the 49ers own the Rams. They've won 8 out of the last 9 meetings. The only loss was last year in the playoffs.
Right.
I don't see them being much of a trouble. Minnesota is actually leading the OBJ race at the moment, so that could be a crazy weapon. Justin Jefferson, OBJ, Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook in the backfield. Just going to come down to whether Kirk Cousins can play under the lights, I guess. But so for me, I put them right up there. I cannot believe that he went and being one of the first dominoes to go. They weren't dragging this on to see who's going to offer the biggest package, because I'm sure the Chiefs would look in at him. Green Bay would, but you know, some of these contending teams that want to take that next step up would really offer a lot. They gave up, like you said, I think somewhere between 4 and 6 picks, and so it's a good amount. But I mean, look up the Rams. I think gave up 6 picks for Stafford 2 years ago, and Christian McCaffrey is electric. I mean, he adds such. And when you pair that with the San Francisco defense that they already have, you have an offensive coach, a great defensive team already, and now you add in that piece as well. It's a complete team. And I don't see how they can't go on and run the table in the NFC if they can get him integrated.
Here's why he went to the 49ers. Ed McCaffrey, his dad, played for Mike Shanahan at the Broncos.
No way.
Kyle
That's
Shanahan, Mike
incredible.
Shanahan's son,
No
coaches the
way.
49ers,
Oh
and Ed
my
McCaffrey's son
gosh.
now plays for Kyle Shanahan.
Oh my goodness, that is absolutely incredible. You can't even
Pretty
see,
cool, isn't it?
Hollywood couldn't even write this kind of storyline.
No.
Imagine they go on now and win a Super Bowl together like that.
Yeah.
Would be incredible. But yeah, we had to start with that great news, that crazy news that broke early this morning. I couldn't believe it, especially for what you said on Tuesday. But now let's go back. College football. It seems like it was forever ago, but last Saturday was one of the best college football days that I can remember. It was absolutely fantastic, and we really start that day off with the game, Michigan and Penn State at the Big House, big noon kickoff for that one. 17-16, right there at the beginning of the third quarter, Penn State kicking that field goal to take that 17-16 lead there in Ann Arbor. But that really wasn't the tale of those first two and some quarters. Michigan dominated the ball, dominated possession, dominated in the run game against a very good Penn State defense, top 5 going into it. I think just under 80 yards per game allowed going into that for the Penn State defense. And then the game finished 41-17 Michigan. How did they do that? And what does that mean for Michigan moving forward now? The fact that you were able to dominate a defense like that, scoring 25 points in a quarter and a half.
We were able to, well, first of all, they allowed 80 rush yards per game, and we had two running backs that doubled that.
Yeah.
That's
incredible.
Yeah. So we definitely beat them with the run because that's what they, the way that everybody thought to beat Penn State was the pass because they have such a good run defense. Well, the reason we were able to do it is our offensive line is elite. I mean, they are unbelievable. And I thought they were great, coming into this game. And Iowa is a good defense, and we ran all over Iowa. But Iowa's not as good as they have been in the past, so I kind of wrote that one off. I still wasn't a true believer of how great our offensive line was. Well, we did that to Penn State, who was a top-ranked rush defense, number 10 in the country, a really solid team, and we just ran all over them. Our offensive line is the real deal. If we can run like that, Blake Corum is the real deal. Donovan Edwards is a good backup, and I think he'll be good in the next few years, but he showed some real promise in that game where he was running like a starting running back. It was insanity. I mean, it was phenomenal to watch. Now, the only problem is if we have a team that possesses the ball more than we do and we get behind, are we going to stick to the run game or are we going to be forced to pass the ball? Because McCarthy's still not quite there yet. And as long as we can keep possession and get ahead, we'll just run the clock out and we'll run for 400 yards and the game will be great. But as we saw versus Georgia last year, because this was the same kind of team we had last year where it was run first, run for 300 yards a game. And I don't know that we can, compete with the Georgias, Alabamas, and even Ohio State. So it's going to be close. If we can run the ball, then we win. If we're forced to pass, I don't know. We haven't really been forced to pass yet. Yeah,
and that's the one thing I wanted to talk to you about because watching that game and even the completed percentage from JJ McCarthy going into this game, I think was high 70s going into this game. And we talked about it because the last week about him throwing those short to intermediate passes, kind of getting it into the skill players' hands and then just letting them take off with it. Good completions. There isn't tight windows to throw into, and it's nice and easy there, and then they can do the rest. And the same exact happened on this game, and you saw that the game was even for 3 quarters, or score-wise anyway, because you guys couldn't J.J. McCarthy couldn't punish Penn State for all the ball possession that you've had. You couldn't punish them with touchdowns and touchdowns and touchdowns. They knew the run was coming. They were able to stop it for 2 quarters and a little bit, and then it exploded, and you guys exploded with 25 points there to close out the game. And so if he isn't able to, let's say you're behind the chains, it's 3 and 8, third down, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10, maybe you give up -2 yards with a sack or something like that, it's 3rd and 12. Do you think against Ohio State, for example, or a Georgia or a Tennessee or an Alabama or the like, that J.J. McCarthy right now can make up that play that could extend drives, that gets you moving, that can bail out if the run game has a bad play or there's a holding call?
If we're talking, just a 3rd and 12, yeah, he can do that, because we can, if we have a good play call and it's into the right defense, yeah, he can find the open receiver. He's not, he's good at throwing the ball. He's got a great arm strength, and he can run. He's really fast. He can outrun a lot of linebackers. So he can, even if there's nobody open and he doesn't trust it, he can make it with his feet. Now, can he do that for a whole half where he's carrying our team in a high-flying, high-scoring game? I don't know, because in those games, it's not normally long drives, long possessions. It's normally the, rush here, short pass, and then deep ball. And that's been his issues, is the deep ball. He overthrows all of them. And that's been our issue. So once he can figure that out, it'll spread out defenses way more, because right now they don't have to cover the deep ball because they know he's going to overthrow it. So they don't need to play 2 high safeties so he can throw them over the middle all day. They just need to play tight coverage, and he's going to miss the overthrow or miss the long throw.
Especially having to prepare for that run game that Michigan has, that offensive line that Michigan has. You have to focus on that regardless. And so that's why I think it's the key. What's nice for Michigan is I think they played in the most important game in terms of college football playoff last weekend, and that is with the games TCU, Oklahoma State, and Tennessee, Alabama. We'll get to those a little bit later. But last weekend, I thought Penn State, Michigan was the most important, because it sets up for both of them to go play Ohio State in the driver's seat. They get to watch now. Michigan gets to watch Penn State at home host Ohio State, knowing that Ohio State has to go in there and get a win just to get a chance at Michigan. Michigan now in the driver's seat there to come out of the Big Ten. Really, I mean, Illinois is there, but out of the Big Ten West there. But I don't know if we're giving Illinois enough props, maybe with the top points per game defense in the whole country at like 8.9 points. Illinois sits at right now. But Michigan definitely in the driver's seat to come out of the East, ahead of Ohio State, ahead of Penn State, because they've won that game, and they won that game soundly. I mean, to beat a top 10 team like that, 41-17, in the fashion of which you did against what is their bread and butter, stopping the run, to put up, like you said, 2 running backs put up double the season average of Penn State. Absolutely incredible. So I'm going to look for these next couple of games leading up to the last game of the season in Columbus, whether or not J.J. McCarthy can demonstrate that he can put the team on his back when needed and make that throw, that crucial throw, maybe in tight coverage, that deep ball when the running game might not be working as well, because I think that's that next step to be able to do damage in the college football playoff. But another 2 teams definitely in the conversation still after last week's game, Tennessee and Alabama. Tennessee snapping 15-game losing streak to Alabama, especially under Nick Saban. Alabama had over 17 penalties in this game, which is a new record for him as well. And it was still close in the near the end there. Alabama with a scoop and score late to take the lead. Then Alabama tries to win it with a 50-yard field goal when it was tied 49-49. That gives Tennessee and Hendon Hooker, Patrick Mahomes time, which is 17 seconds, goes down the field. 2 passes, they get about 37 yards and kick the game-winning field goal with 2 seconds left. The field goal post ends up in the river. The crowd storming the field, which is absolutely fantastic. What are your thoughts now Alabama with one loss out there on the West, and the SEC West still kind of controls their own destiny. Tennessee now will host Georgia in a couple weeks. Both teams undefeated there in the East. What are your thoughts on how all of that is going to play out?
I mean, I could see it where all three get in if they're all close games. I really could.
Wow.
I mean, they're so good. If Alabama wins out and they win the SEC championship game against Georgia, and if Georgia goes into that game undefeated, so they would have beat Tennessee, they're all one-loss teams. And they're all one-loss teams to each other, who are arguably, they're 3 top 5 teams. So do you really punish them that much for losing to a top 5 team? You know what I mean? Like, and not even like, especially like the Alabama game where it was by a game-winning field goal. It was a fantastic game. They were both evenly matched. Yes, there was penalties, but there's penalties for a reason, because you get a pass interference. It's because you got beat. You're offsides because you're trying to jump the snap count because you can't get past the offensive line. Or same thing, false start because they're killing you on defense and you got to stop them. So it's like there's reasons for penalties. I don't think for a team like Alabama, it's not a mental lapse. It's I have to have every edge that I can get because you guys are tough. So
yeah,
I think it could be in a world where we do have 3 SEC teams making it out. I would hate to see that because I think there's teams good enough there's more than, one other team that would deserve to go in, but it could shake out that way. Unfortunately.
Yeah. See, I think so. The one thing that's cool about the Big 12 and the last couple of years, especially with Oklahoma, kind of dominating that conference for a little while there, because there's no divisions in the Big 12, you have a chance to lose to a team, finish in the top 2 still, and then replay them in the Big 12 championship game and basically avenge your only loss. One of the interconference plays, one of the big things is like, yeah, well, they beat you. And they don't really, and that's early on in the season. So you're not really the same team as you are early on the season, but they still get to say they beat you. If Oregon wins the Pac-12, Georgia will always get to say that they demolished the Pac-12 champion because they blew them out in week 1. And so for both of those reasons, the Big 12 and the Pac-12 scenarios that I just gave, I think Tennessee beating Georgia is the worst thing for all the other conferences. Because Alabama taking this loss, it doesn't really affect them in terms of being able to make the college football playoff, like if they when they lost to LSU a couple of years ago, because LSU is in the same SEC West with them, and so therefore they couldn't. LSU, was able to go to the SEC championship game. Alabama will be in Atlanta for the SEC championship game, and it's just who are they going to play? And if it is Tennessee, I would have Alabama winning just because of the revenge game. It's the SEC championship game. They're there every year. They're used to it. Tennessee hasn't been there in forever. It's a little bit different. And so Alabama will be able to avenge that loss against Tennessee, but Tennessee will always have the fact that they beat the SEC champion in Alabama a couple weeks ago, in which case both, I think, would get in regardless. So I think if that happens, if Tennessee beats Georgia, Tennessee has practically booked itself into the college football playoff, no matter what happens in Atlanta in the SEC championship game. Now, to bring up your thing about Georgia, I don't know what to make of Georgia. Because if Georgia loses to Tennessee, for example, they lost to a really good team, especially if Tennessee goes on to win the Big Ten, or the Big Ten, the SEC. But you have that same scenario that happens every single year between Michigan and Ohio State. And not once has even Penn State for a little bit there in the beginning. Penn State, Ohio State, when Penn State actually won the Big Ten, and Ohio State actually went to the college football playoff. And so they have never given it to a team that finishes second in their division, except for them. And I don't know how they do it. I don't know, yeah, Georgia's a great team. We see them stomp a mud hole in Oregon, for example. We've seen them demolish teams all year for the most part, especially if they could put up a good game against Tennessee. But I don't know what they're going to make of them when they Ohio State, Michigan played each other as top 10 matchups last well, not in the COVID year, but the year before that, like 2016, for example, we were both top 5 matchup. Michigan didn't make the playoff, but we made the playoff. We won that game. Last year, top 10 matchup. You guys beat us. Michigan beat Ohio State. Michigan goes on, wins the Big Ten, goes to the playoff. Ohio State doesn't. So I, as Georgia, if they lose to Tennessee, or Tennessee, if they lose to Georgia, able to make it in a college football playoff when they didn't win their division. I don't see it.
It's a certain scenario. If Alabama goes to win the SEC, they beat the SEC champion.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, the Ohio State made it over Penn State, which shouldn't have happened. I mean, I don't get how that should happen. It defeats the whole purpose of doing any kind of field play. We should just take the top teams from preseason and just throw them into the playoff, because that's obviously all we care about. If you can't win on the field of play, you can't win your division, you can't win your conference, you shouldn't be there. You're not even the best in your conference. And I also have a whole issue, which we can get to it later, but with the fact that teams don't play the same teams. Tennessee is being compared with Georgia this year in the SEC East, and only one of the two teams play Alabama. So I don't get that either. Now Tennessee has to, if they would have lost to Alabama, they would have had to beat Georgia to give them any chance, and they couldn't mess up for the rest of the season. Where Georgia, they just have to beat, if they beat Tennessee, they're in, and if they would lose to Tennessee, then they still have a chance, because if Alabama would have beat Tennessee. So it's the strength of schedule is all over the place within a conference, which I have a problem with. And so I think the worst thing for all the other conferences is if Tennessee beats Georgia, because that, I think, will book both Alabama and Tennessee into the college football playoff.
Well, I think if Georgia beats Tennessee and then Alabama even beats Georgia, I still think Georgia makes it.
Yeah, but see, I get that, but
I mean, I think the two SEC championship teams have a good chance of being in the playoff. I mean, it's happened. How many times? How many years in a row has it been Georgia and Alabama in the playoff? And they've always been 1 and 2. You know what I mean? So they always take who they think the best teams are. So they don't care if they're ranked 1, 2, and 3 in the SEC. But if they think they're 1, 2, and 3 in the country, then that's who they're going to pick. Or they may not even be rank-wise because they lost teams. But if they think they are the best teams in the country, then that's what they're going to do. Because they all beat each other. You know what I mean? So that's why you get the best teams beating each other. Rank-wise will knock them down to 6th or 5th, but they're still the best teams. Because what they're saying is, well, if they played Michigan or if they played Ohio State or Clemson, they would have killed them all. That's kind of how they're thinking about it, because they're all sitting at a round table watching film or talking about it. You know what I mean? They're not going off of like BCS polls where they're just get computer analytics and stuff. Yeah.
But I have such a problem. I just have such a problem with that. I understand you have 2 undefeated teams. When 2 undefeated teams meet in the SEC championship game, for example, it's a close game. It's up there. They're both ranked in the top 4 to begin with. I can see the argument for adding them in, especially when some of these other conferences have 2, 3, 4 losses as their champion. I can see it. But like Alabama goes, for example, I had Alabama actually winning the SEC, and I think it's because they lost to Tennessee. They don't have they have a couple hard tests. They got to go to Baton Rouge, I guess. But I just don't see them taking another loss. I think they're going to clean some things up, and I think they're going to be able to win the SEC. So that leaves Georgia versus Tennessee. And if it's like you said, Georgia beat Tennessee, but we're only comparing Georgia versus Tennessee now. So yes, Georgia beat Tennessee, so you think that Georgia would have the upper hand. Tennessee, though, beat the SEC champion. So then there's that, and then it's like, how can you choose between one or the other? And
really, at that point, they won it doesn't matter that they beat the SEC champion.
Because they beat Tennessee. Because
they beat the team that beat the SEC champion. Yeah, so, I don't know. That's what I mean. I think they all 3 could make it. If they all play the way they've been playing, I honestly think there's a very good chance that it is 3 SEC teams in the winner of the Big Ten.
Wow. Okay, so here I'll close this then out with this question for you here. What is more likely, 1 SEC team or 3 SEC teams advance the college football playoff?
I think 3.
Wow, there it is. 3 teams, more likely the one team after that Tennessee win in Knoxville over Alabama. 4 teams that are going to have issue with that statement right there are we will get to the UCLA Oregon game here in the picks coming up as the undefeated UCLA Bruins go up to Eugene to take on Oregon there. But TCU, Oklahoma State, quick, great game, double overtime. In the Big 12, in the battle of top of the Big 12. TCU coming back in that one to win it in overtime, 43-40 with a touchdown. Absolutely fantastic game. And any thoughts there on the Big 12 picture now as the teams are starting to play each other? Do you think that those teams are going to beat each other senseless and kind of ruin their chances at a playoff?
That's what I think is probably going to happen. Oklahoma State, if they didn't play TCU, I think they may have won the Big 12. But they played TCU, so that was their problem, was the schedule. They had to play TCU because they're a tough team, and they've almost beat them, but they're a great team. And I don't know the schedules off the top of my head, but whoever plays Texas is not going to have a fun game.
All of them.
Okay, well,
all of them play
that's
Texas.
What I mean.
Minus Texas Tech.
So
and Iowa State.
If Texas beats TCU and loses to Oklahoma State, it's just then Texas would be out of it. Or even if Texas beats them all, then they're all 2-loss teams. But then Texas would have the upper hand because they beat them head on. But do you have a 2-loss team in the playoff? No, I don't think you do. Not when you have 1-loss teams in the SEC that all beat each other, top 5 teams.
Not only that, but if Texas win the Big 12 and Oregon win the Pac-12, then the SEC will have 2 teams that beat both of them.
That's what I mean. You don't, and then you put in and then you have Tennessee that beat the SEC champion.
Yeah.
So who's the only odd group out that have 2 great teams? The Big 10.
Mm-hmm. But then you'll have Clemson sitting at undefeated.
You have Clemson too, but honestly, I don't think
if they go undefeated, they're in. I mean, there's no they're a Power 5 team.
I don't think they're as good as Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, or Ohio State. I just don't. And that's what sucks is because, they won their division, they're in. But that's not always how it goes. Penn State won their division, but Ohio State got in. Penn State did everything they possibly could. They won the Big 10 and they got jumped. You know what I mean? So why can't Clemson get jumped and not even by their own division, get jumped by a different division that they think is tougher? Or conference, sorry. So my thing is the Big 10 is tougher than the ACC. So if you pick 3 SEC teams, which I really do think could happen. I really would hate it to happen because it would suck for the Clemsons, the Michigan, Ohio States, the Texas, the Oregons, the teams that could potentially win their conferences. It would really suck because then there's only 1 spot remaining. And I would be pretty upset if the Big 10 champion didn't make it in. Because the potential Big 10 champion.
I don't think that's possible. I don't think with Michigan beating Penn State, Michigan's going to go into that game against Ohio State undefeated. Okay, like they're going to be rolling into Columbus undefeated. Can Ohio State pass the test in Happy Valley and beat Penn State? We will see. There's also some good games. We got Iowa this weekend for Ohio State, and so we will see if they can make it there. But if Ohio State has a chance of making the Big 10, then they're going to basically need to be, 1 loss or undefeated there. So then you'll have, without a doubt, at worst, 1 loss Big 10 champion at worst. And I just cannot see with Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State in the same division, if you are 1 loss Big 10 champion at most likely you will be an undefeated Big 10 champion. I just don't see how you can't get in, especially we know for a fact that one of those teams are going to have a loss, and everyone we predict. I mean, I think the Pac-12 and Big 12 champion will both have 2 losses, personally speaking, by the end of all. So I just don't see how they.
You think it's going to be Utah, don't you?
I don't know. We're going to get to some picks. Let's dive into it, actually. Let's dive into this week's college football picks. We do all of our picks on ESPN, so go ahead and make your account. We cracked the top 200,000 here of college football. We are going for number one across the board, 29-20 record entering week 8 here. As we do our picks, we start off with the ranked Bearcats. Welcome back to the top 25 as they take on SMU, who's been kind of a staple in the college football pick'em. We see 97% going with the 5-1 Bearcats to take this one. Are you going with anything different than that?
No, I'm not. Cincinnati's a good team. They're always a good team. I think they're always, right around top 25, maybe top between 15 and 25. I think they're a good team. Do I think they really should have ever made the college football playoff like they did and then got absolutely thrashed by Alabama, I believe it was? No. Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, their schedule said they should have made it. So they did, and they got proved wrong. And I guess that's why there's the committee that makes those decisions, and they chose Ohio State over Penn State because that's what they believed. I do think it's a flawed system.
We got thrashed too.
Yeah, and we've talked about our potential, playoff dreams of having every conference champion make it. And then you may have a few, throw-in games or, like wild card games or something, or teams. But yeah, I think if you win your division, your conference, you should have a chance.
I totally agree with that. And if you don't win your conference, I don't see why you are anywhere near.
No, you shouldn't have a chance. Play. I mean, unless you have. I mean, how many conferences are there?
5, group of 5, and 5 power 5, so 10 total.
So 10 total. So put in 12 teams.
Yeah,
so you have two wild
that's
cards.
The thing. That's the expansion that they're doing, right? But they're doing the expansion as the 6th highest ranked conference champion and 6 wild cards. So it's still going to be a subjective ranking system on who is the highest ranked conference champion, especially when you're working with a group of 5 teams. You're going to have 2 group of 5 teams that, usually the champion of these, the American and all those kinds of stuff are usually 1 to 2 lost teams, if not undefeated. And so you're going to be comparing 2 undefeated teams and see who's just ranked slightly higher at they'll probably be like number 26, 27, 28 in the country overall. And they will be getting in because they are the 6th ranked conference champion. And then the team ranked 27th, who, but for some random metric got pushed out, won't make it and then won't be a wild card because they're ranked 27th.
Yeah, and then you'll get, the
terrible
Power system. 5 number 2s.
Yeah.
And that's it
2s
every
and
time.
3s and yeah.
I mean, that's when you would have the Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia.
And then, Ole Miss maybe.
And then that's what I mean. You could throw in the Mississippi State, Ole Miss, if you're having that many teams, because you're talking the top 10 ranked teams.
Yeah.
And then the oddball 6th is, who knows, the MAC champion if they go undefeated and they're ranked 25th, like you're saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
then,
exactly.
Or so you get Cincinnati and they're ranked 21st, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think you and I are on the same page with that. We need conference champions and only conference champions because otherwise you can't earn it on the field of play. You don't know going into every season. You don't even know what it is going to take for you to win a national championship. If you know that you have to win your conference to make it and you're guaranteed when you win your conference to make it, you have a path to win the national championship no matter where you are or where you go to school. I think it has great effects on college football. But we move on to game 2 here in the ESPN Pick'em. Daquan Finn and the Toledo Rockets go to take on the Buffalo Bulls. It's been so cold in the Midwest, East Coast area over the last couple of weeks, but it is going to be upper 70s, upper 60s probably for this game up there. Finn is leading the team in passing and rushing as the quarterback. I think of him as a mini Hendon Hooker there. So you've got Toledo going to 6-2, or you got Buffalo taking the win at home.
No, I agree with you. I think that quarterback is really good. I mean, really good. And so I don't see anything but a Toledo win in this one.
Yep, I agree. 82% as well, picking the Rockets to go there and get the win. A team looking to also go on the road and get a win is the undefeated Ole Miss Rebels. Lane Kiffin taking his talents into Baton Rouge, take on the LSU Tigers. One of the craziest atmospheres in all of college football there in Baton Rouge. Do you have the Rebels, one of 4 SEC teams ranked inside the top 7? Do you have them going in and going to 8-0?
Man, I think this will be a really tough game because Baton Rouge is a tough place to play. And LSU's never really a bad team. You know, they have bad games or whatever, but they have talent. And so at any given day, they can beat anybody, you know, if they're having a bad day. But Lane Kiffin, he's a good coach, and he's proven he's a good coach at numerous different teams. And he's really taken Ole Miss to the next level. And I do think that Ole Miss will go to Baton Rouge and come out with a W. But I think it will be a very hard-fought W.
I think I agree. I think this is going to be a great game. We saw LSU get manhandled at home by Tennessee a couple weeks ago, 40-13, a good bounce back win in the swamp, 45-35. But they give up points, and we know Lane Kiffin likes to score points, and so giving up 40 plus in their last 2 games is not a good recipe for success against another top 10 team. I think it will be close. I can side with you with Ole Miss. I think it will come down to the wire just because of the fact that it's in Baton Rouge. But we will go with the Rebels. And here we go. The class of the Pac-12 currently. I mean, we got Utah with 2 losses, USC with only 1 loss at that close game last week. What a game it was in Utah for the absolute great game. Cam Rising. Wait, was that last week or 2 weeks ago now? I'm all confused. That was last week, right?
That was last week. Yeah.
That was last week. Oh my God, seems like
forever ago.
I know, right? But what a game that was. Cam Rising putting on a great performance there at the end, rushing for the touchdown on 4th down, getting the 2-point conversion as well. A absolute fantastic game in Salt Lake City. But this is the matchup we've been waiting for. The undefeated UCLA Bruins, who took down Utah, now go to the Oregon, up to Eugene, where Oregon is a 6.5-point favorite in this one. Do you agree with the Ducks winning at home, or do you have Chip Kelly going back to Oregon, where he played the national championship game in 2014, but with the UCLA Bruins and getting a win?
UCLA will win this game, and it will be the Zach Charbonnet show, the running back for the UCLA Bruins. He is going to run all over Oregon, and he's really, really good. He played for Michigan. He transferred to UCLA. I wish he didn't. You know, I mean, we got Blake Corum now. That's great. But he was really good when he was a freshman at Michigan. He transferred out, and he is really good at UCLA. I think UCLA are going to win this game. I mean, they beat Utah. They're 6-0. They are no slouch. So for them to be favorite or, underdogs in this one, they should be pretty upset about that because they should feel disrespected. They didn't get trounced by Georgia in week 1. They beat everybody they've played. They should not be underdogs.
Yeah, what's so great also about this matchup is both teams are coming off of a bye week. They both have had 2 weeks now to prepare for each other. Clash at the top of the Pac-12. Oregon hasn't scored under 40 points since only scoring 3 against Georgia. Okay, every single week they've scored 40 points, including a great game against BYU a couple of weeks ago. I know you and I were very intrigued by all the BYU games to start the season. Great atmosphere there for BYU. Oregon getting the win, and that's why I have trouble with this because I feel like they got absolutely skull dragged by Georgia that opening week, but since then they've been building back up. They've been playing great football on both sides of the ball, especially on offense. I mean, scoring 40 points against anyone is a great thing to do it 5 consecutive weeks with 5 consecutive victories is just a whole nother level. UCLA, I agree with you. Offensively, fantastic. And the way that they were able to shut down Utah the way they did was fantastic. But UCLA, only one road game, and that was away to Colorado this year. And I am a sucker for a home team. I think this one will be absolute fireworks. I can see UCLA going in and controlling possession and making it close. I would edge Oregon, but I'd love to see UCLA go undefeated and carry the flag for the Pac-12. And I think they are the reason why. I mean, beating Utah the way that they did, I think I would love a UCLA USC showdown there near the end of the season to see. The winner of this game versus USC is who I have in the Pac-12 championship game, to be honest with you. And the Pac-12 got rid of divisions, so it's going to be the same as the Big 12 where you play each other twice. And so UCLA, USC at the end of the season, if they're both at one loss and they play each other, it's really going to be for the undefeated team to see if they can make the college football playoff. Because if they start beating each other, then we're going to have a problem. So let's roll with the Bruins to go into Eugene and get the upset, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's not right.
So let's go with them. Texas, a squeaker against Iowa State last week. Oklahoma State double overtime against TCU as they played crazy back-to-back weeks for Oklahoma State. Now they get Texas. It does not get easier in the Big 12. Probably the best division, top to bottom in college football. Who do you got in that one?
I mean, I know you're a huge Texas fan, but they struggled against Iowa State. And I like Oklahoma State in this game. I think they're a good team. Their quarterback is fantastic. They have a great team overall. I don't think they're going to stop Texas. They just need to slow them down enough so they can score more. That's it, because I don't think Texas can stop Oklahoma State's offense. Here we go. All right, hold on.
This one's a tough one for me. This one's tough for me. I have Texas. I just think Texas is the class of the Big 12 quality-wise. Whether they can put games together, we've seen over the last couple of years that they've had the talent. They always have the talent. We know that they have the booster money to get the talent on top of it, and they just can't put it together. And with Quinn Ewers and Robinson and all of the weapons they have out there, I think it's hard to keep them quiet. We saw that in Iowa State game; it was close, but you couldn't keep them quiet for the whole 60 minutes there. And
they kept them quiet enough.
They kept them quiet enough to lose.
But Iowa State is not Oklahoma State.
I know, but Oklahoma State playing Baylor, Texas Tech, and a double overtime against TCU last weekend. I just think that they're gonna have problems.
They're ready for the big games. They're used to the big games. They're primed for this game. You got to think they're not 33 years old where they need their bodies need a break. These guys are 18, 19, 20, 21. They're just foaming at the mouth for this game. They are ready to take on Texas at home. You're a sucker for home games.
I am a sucker for home games, but just to put in perspective in terms of, Oklahoma State and, their crazy run here, they only scored 6 points against TCU in the second half. They scored more points in overtime than they did in the second half of that game. And I just think that Texas is too hard to stop, but I am a sucker for a home team. Fine, we'll go Cowboys. Let's go Cowboys. Oklahoma State to crack the top 10 after beating Texas with the great matchup that we have in college football.
All right, let me scroll before you change your mind.
Okay. Memphis taking on Tulane, the Green Wave at 6-1 to start the season at home as they are now ranked in the top 25. Who do you got?
The Green Wave keep rolling. I'm going to go with Tulane in this one. I don't really know much about this team, but I know that Memphis isn't very good. And so I'm going to take Tulane.
Yeah, I always respect Tulane for usually taking on some big teams there across the college football landscape recently. um, playing Kansas State earlier this season, a team that beat Kansas State earlier this season as well.
Big reason they're
so
ranked.
I love to see it. Exactly, big reason they're ranked. Especially we saw Kansas State went into Norman and did to the Sooners. So let's roll with the green wave in that one. BYU, another staple here in the ESPN Pick'em, as they sit at 4-3, but have played some great games against some great teams
Those are
this season.
three
As they
pretty
take on
good losses.
Liberty. Yeah, as they take on Liberty this week, we rolling with BYU to get the away win there.
I think so. I think BYU is a really solid team. Their quarterback is great. I'm a huge fan of him. He can make things happen with his legs. He seems like he just does not make the wrong throw. You know, he just keeps – he's kind of like a Garoppolo where he just doesn't seem to make the wrong play, and he can run. So I like BYU in this game. I think they have more talent than Liberty will have.
Yeah, let's roll with the Cougars in this one as the Nittany Lions and Minnesota look to get into the win column this week in Happy Valley. Penn State, after that drubbing in that second half to Michigan last week, they bounce back for you and get a win against Row Your Boat, PJ Fleck.
I think so. Mo Ibrahim is a great running back, but the only problem that he has is he does not have Michigan's offensive line. If he had Michigan's offensive line, I think that they could have a great day against Penn State, but they don't.
Where have we seen that before?
Yeah, and Penn State just got, I mean, I'm sure they had quite the tough week in practice about defending the run, especially going up against another good running back. They probably really are fixing all of those issues. And for that reason, I think Minnesota are going to have to rely on the passing game. And I don't think they have what it takes to beat Penn State. Given that they can't run that, I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Penn State, not only for this game, but next week they have to welcome in the Buckeyes as well with the rushing attack that we know that they have. So that is definitely going to be the focus, getting back to their bread and butter, which is stopping the run. And so for that reason, I agree with you. Penn State bounce back and get the win. UCF, as always, top there in their conference at 5-1 as they take on East Carolina. Always fireworks when these two teams take the field, especially up there in Carolina with that purple field paint that they got up there. Always great. I don't know what it is. I love watching them.
Yeah, I love it. I don't know why.
Yeah, so always great. Are we going with a home win in this one, or UCF going to still be the cream of the crop and get the win?
I would love East Carolina to win. It would be awesome. But I think UCF's too good. I don't know though. I mean, these, like you said, these games are always fireworks. So yeah, it really could go East Carolina's way, but I don't think this is the year for it.
Yeah, this matchup always is so fun. But I will agree with you. Let's go with the Golden Knights there to get the win. Kansas State still ranked in the top 25 as they now they have to go to undefeated TCU, escaping in double overtime to Oklahoma State. Can Kansas State mark their name, throw their ring in the hat of the Big 12, and be a force to reckon with as we approach the end of the season? Or will TCU be atop the mountaintop in the Big 12 for you and go to 7-0?
Man, I think that Kansas State is a really, really good football team, but TCU is just really good. And they're good at home. I would love to see Kansas State win this game, but I just don't think they will. I think it's going to be a great game. I think Kansas State's not going to lose the game. I think they're going to just get beat by TCU. I don't think they're going to do anything that, fumble and pick six or anything. I just think it's going to be a good game. It's just TCU are going to end up on top.
Yeah,
Adrian Martinez is a really, really good quarterback. He had his struggles at Nebraska where he was, a great running quarterback, but he just was kind of that option style quarterback. And then when he'd throw the ball, he would be an interception. But now when he's with Kansas State, he seems like he is a different quarterback. He's really slinging the ball around like he knows what he's doing. The system fits for him, and he's looking like a top-notch quarterback. I don't think that they can stop TCU, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree. It's been they've gotten 2 weeks now to prepare for this game, so I think that will help. But I agree with you. I don't think they will make much mistakes. Martinez hasn't thrown an interception on the season so far. He's been really asked to kind of manage more than anything else. 4 touchdowns, 900 yards passing so far on the season. I think he will be doing pretty much the same thing, but I agree TCU will just be a little bit too much for Kansas State, and they will eke it out, which is the same for Tulane, because if Kansas State wins out, then Tulane will get to claim that they beat the only team to beat the Big 12, and maybe they should be getting a shout for the college football playoff. But we will see what happens this weekend. TCU just get the win and move to 7-0 as they carry the flag for the Big 12. And that's all 10. Wow, that's great.
Yeah,
all 10 picks there. I'm sad Syracuse, Clemson wasn't on the list here. Before we go, you got a pick for that one as Clemson take on kind of a team that's kind of been a bogey team a little bit for them, always giving them a little bit of trouble, especially if they're playing in New York. They are not. They are down in South Carolina for that one. But we got North Carolina.
For that reason, I think it'll be, a Clemson win. I don't think it'll be very close, unfortunately. I don't want to see Clemson being in always as the ACC champion. So I would love to get them knocked off because I don't think they're as good as some of these other teams. I think TCU, Oklahoma State, Texas, Michigan, Ohio State, maybe even Penn State could give Clemson a run for their money. And then that's not even talking about USC, UCLA. There's a lot of good football teams that just beat each other. And it's not fair to somebody, to all these teams to have just Clemson waltz in, not play any tough teams. Yeah, you have Florida State, you have Miami, but they've sucked for the past 10 years, and when you're talking about Syracuse being one of the better teams in the ACC to maybe knock them off or something, that's rough. I think Clemson win this game easily.
Yeah, I agree with you. We're basically just fighting. The rest of us are really just fighting for 3 spots, in my opinion. I think Clemson going undefeated books their place handedly in the college football playoff with no doubt. The committee are going to struggle with getting anyone in over them or getting 4 teams over them. They will definitely have a spot. I don't think they'll be ranked 1 or 2, unless chaos ensues. But them being undefeated is going to keep them right there. But that's why they've been ranked basically 5 through 8. And every time someone wins, they jump them. And so because no one really believes in them. But at the end of the day, when they're undefeated, they will get in. We had a great weekend of sports last weekend. We had another great weekend. MLS playoffs heating up as the Eastern and Western conferences are going to get started. NLCS, ALCS, both underway already. Great games there. And hopefully we'll get another great day in college football like we did last Saturday. We will be talking NFL on Tuesday as well. So come back and join us for that. Enjoy all the sporting action from all of us at the webcast. I'm Adam, and that's Doug, and we will see you on Tuesday.